the only two things we as men only need to focus on in order to rebuild ourselves. Let's face it, all relationships are based on a transaction. If you want to over-romanticize or have some kind of poetic philosophy towards relationship and love and all this type of things, then eventually you will wake up with a wake-up call and realize that everything was based on a transaction. So therefore, if we go through, let's say, a separation or a divorce or whatever, because we felt like there was absolutely no kind of healthy dynamic between the masculine, the feminine, or that we have become emasculated from trying to please a woman, and when we were starting to pour from an empty cup. If that has been the case, which I personally have had to go through, of being in a long-term relationship for over 10-12 years, and eventually start to realize that I was pouring my energy from an empty cup, and where I felt depleted and drained and all of that, and I wasn't feeling very grounding within myself. I did not feel like a very integrated person, and sometimes we come to the conclusion that maybe that what we were trying to look for within a partner was maybe something that we were missing from our own upbringing, from our own childhood. So therefore we must step into some kind of initiation to not only heal from these childhood traumas we have experienced, but eventually come to realize that in order to rebuild ourselves, we must only focus on two things in order to not fall victim of being a people pleaser once again, or being abuser, or victimize yourself and disempower yourself from either the people pleaser, the perpetrator, or someone who constantly keeps hiding from himself. So like it or not, but to rebuild our masculine energy, we must focus on only two things. Number one, it's doing that what fills our bank account. Remember, masculinity is getting to yourself to a position where you have power. And this power is, first of all, it's opening up our own energy centers and hold a space that we must first of all build for ourselves. Building up this space, that eventually can create options in life. That applies to anything in life, whether it's like the apartment you want to live in, the house you want to live in, the type of cars you want to drive, because that can represent, let's say, your image, your identity. And having a very grounded, integrated identity is what I believe is very, very important to rebuild ourselves. And for that, resources are needed. But also, of course, you know, like everything, like I'm saying, like everything is transactional. So you can indeed pick the woman you actually want to give your time and energy to, and create options in your life. Because if you don't, remember, all women, they are always dating up a few levels. So if you want to have, let's say, a high value woman, then of course you've got to go and make sure is that you have built yourself up a few levels. So you're not going to pick to, let's say, a lower quality option that is going to drain you or see you as a means to an end to their own need for survival, because that's what a lot of women do. So not all, but many. So but in order to get out there and chasing money, it's always better to chase money, because if you chase woman, that will cost you money. But if you chase money, then a woman will follow. I'm not saying that, you know, like only pick women who are after your money, because, you know, eventually you also want to have some sort of emotional connection and intimacy in your life. And if you just show off your material financial status, then that could also attract a certain type of woman that doesn't really care at all of building any kind of emotional intimacy. But of course, like I've been saying for a couple of videos, like we as a tiny little drop of water or consciousness, we must realize our true potential and realize that as a tiny little drop of water, we can connect with the ocean of infinite consciousness around us. And if we We serve that ocean through our dedication for our purpose, our work, career, businesses, and all of that. And it doesn't matter what you do, a job, career, or business, if you can integrate a level of purpose within that, like this is like part of your soul calling, or it's like a stepping stone of rebuilding yourself up, then what happens is you can create waves of transformation in your life. And these tsunamis that you can create, that can also cause is that you can create a safe harbor. You can create a safe harbor where the ship, which is female, can go alongside and deliver her cargo. So that's really kind of like part of the journey. But for that you gotta go and rebuild yourself, build the resources so you can have options. But if you want to go get out there, you know, you take massive action and you do a lot of work, and you're hustling, you're grinding, you're making sure that you're collecting the resources in order to create options in your life, then for that, let's say the body is like the vehicle, or your business, your job, your career is like your vehicle that can get you where you want to be. In order to drive that vehicle, of course, you need an engine, which is the mind. The mind needs to be optimized like any kind of engine. Like here, there's a ship coming into the port. You will see it in any minute, which will pass by. That ship can pass through the water because it has an engine. But to keep an engine running, of course, it needs fuel, it needs energy, it needs petrol in the tank. And that also applies to us. Let's say your body is your vehicle, the mind is the engine, and your spirit, your energy, your life force energy, that is the fuel, the petrol you put into the tank. So besides hustling, grinding and doing all of that, then besides that, the other two things is of course the optimization of mind, body and spirit. And that's really what I like to dedicate my time to, most of the part, because if you neglect that part and you're only hustling and grinding, making sure you get your money, but then that can cause like other issues in life, like burnout, or you know, other health challenges, that if you're neglecting that, then you eventually will pay the price for that later on. So this is kind of the beauty that I always like to see here. We got a tiny little tugboat that is probably going to tow that ship, this tanker, into the port, because of course it needs some more alongside in order to discharge or load his LPG or whatever it is he has on board. And then also besides me, we got a platform that is probably going through a decommissioning, where the platform is not longer needed, or it needs maintenance, or it gets deconstructed because they are pulling out a lot of platforms off the North Sea. They bring it here into port for decommissioning. So once again, the two things we only need to focus on, because if you don't focus on that, then you will come to a conclusion. You're chasing something that you can't catch, or you can't really seem to grab, but that's why you need to go and focus on the things that makes you more attractive, doing things that we are supposed to do. Like look at these ships, for example. Now the waves are crashing in because of the ship, but a sailor always used to be away on the sea for months and months and months in order to earn a living. Now what we do is we have like a simple job here on shore, and every day we come back home and have a comfortable evening together with our girlfriend or spouse on the sofa watching a bit of Netflix. But actually that is not very attractive, because we are supposed to get out there and hustle and grind and making sure we bring in food on the table. I mean, it's a little bit old-fashioned, but it's like part of our biology, it's part of our nature, it's part of masculine energy. Like, take for example, hundreds of years ago, we were also like sailors and merchant traders out on the open seas on our wooden ships, venturing into the unknown, discovering new lands, exploring new lands, looking for ways to trade and to bring back from the Far East or the West Indies, and we were trying to sell it here onto Europe. And we were away for weeks or even months, wondering if we actually will be coming back, and we were leaving our wives and children behind so we could provide for them. So if we can reconnect with that kind of mindset, that kind of attitude, that kind of spirits, then I think that's the way for us to rebuild ourselves, and that's for us to heal ourselves, because then that will make us a whole person that makes us come across as more vibrant and attractive, and that gives us options in life in any kind of way. And that's the only two things we should be chasing. Number one is kind of like a career that turns into money, and these careers doesn't always have to be your passion, because if you have a passion for whatever, but that can bring in the resources to perhaps fuel another kind of passion, and maybe that passion isn't really paying the bills, but if you keep doing that kind of like feeds the mind, the soul, the spirit, and if you do that long enough, then that passion can also start to pay for your journey, and that's really when you start building multiple streams of revenue. And that's maybe when you do not longer a job or a career, but now you don't work anymore, but you're working your purpose, you're working and you're fulfilling your soul's journey. And the core basis of that is, of course, like emotional mastery over ourselves. It's a greater level of stoicism within us, that we are not longer affected that much anymore by external situations and events, and that we become more rock steady in our day-to-day presence. And I think that's that's really where we become like initiated into masculine adulthood and emotional maturity. So if you want to share some thoughts on this, if you have been through similar situations and you want to really dedicate yourself and perhaps integrate a little bit of our ancestral knowledge and wisdom and spiritual practices to keep feeding and filling up your glass of water or glass of consciousness, so you can go and get out there, feel energized and inspired to go and start making things happen within your life. Because first it's like chasing the money, but to chase the money you need to fill your glass with inspiration, motivation, energy, and fill your tank and optimize the mind and the body in order to go and get out there. So if this makes sense, please let me know. Simply drop a comment below and make sure to subscribe as well.